If you ever tried moving from RPG Maker to Godot, this video is for you. So you probably had the same exact reaction when you open Godot. Where's everything? RPG Maker gives you almost everything you need to make your RPG. Godot, on the other hand, gives you an empty project. A few months ago, I decided to revive an old JRPG I started making in RPG Maker. So instead of continuing the project there, I challenged myself to rebuild the entire game from scratch in Godot. Not only because I wanted more flexibility, but because I also want to see what it actually takes to build a traditional JRPG in Godot. So today I want to share the plugins, tools, and systems I'd recommend if I had to start all over again. This is more like a devlog, not exactly a tutorial or a step-by-step guide. It's more of an overview of the things I do if I was going to start over again. So let's start with a few plugins that I always use in my projects. The Dialog Manager plugin is something that every RPG needs. I usually don't recommend building your own dialogue system unless you have a very specific reason to do it. So this is the first plugin I always install in every project I start. It's called Dialog Manager. In my opinion, it's one of the most complete dialogue systems available for Godot. So this plugin lets you build entire conversations directly inside the editor. It has like branching dialogues, conditions, variables, choices. You can even put like character portraits and create speech balloons for your game. One of my favorite features is that you can build complex cutscenes without writing much code. So you can check things like whether the player completed a quest, you can like unlock a dialogue option after an event. And if you ever need something more advanced, this plugin is very customizable. The developer has published several example projects that show how the plugin can be extended, and they've helped me multiple times whenever I wanted to implement something a little bit different. The next one is called Phantom Camera. Godot's default cameras work perfectly fine until they don't. As soon as you start making cutscenes, cinematic transitions, or even boss introductions, if you have any scripted events, managing cameras start becoming surprisingly annoying. So that's where Phantom Camera comes in. It's inspired by one of the Unity's most popular camera systems, and it works both in 2D and 3D. So instead of writing camera logic yourself, you can simply create camera behaviors and switch between them. You can do things like smooth transitions, camera that follows the player, cinematic shots during a cutscene. You could build a camera system by yourself, but unless your project has very specific camera requirements, Phantom Camera will save you a lot of time. So now let's talk about something that's surprisingly easy to overlook, a sound manager. Most beginners end up scattering audio stream player nodes all over the project. I've done it and it works until the project starts growing. That's why I almost always install Sound Manager. It's made by the same developer behind the Dialog Manager plugin, and it solves most of the annoying parts of audio management. So it plays background music, it can crossfade between tracks, it plays sound effects, and it's also easy to manage multiple sounds at once, keeping everything organized. I originally started using this plugin for game jams because I needed something that was fast and quick to set up, but nowadays I even use it in larger projects. Unless your project has very specific sound and music needs, I'd say just stick with the Sound Manager plugin because it will do everything you need for your RPG. The next one is like a hidden gem in my opinion. It's called Node Shaker. It does exactly what the name suggests. It shakes things, and at first it doesn't sound very exciting until you realize how many games use shake effects. So you can use that when an enemy gets hit, for an explosion, earthquakes, a heavy attack. The plugin is designed for 3D, but the code is actually pretty straightforward, and I've adapted parts of it for 2D projects before. It's very lightweight and incredibly easy to use, and somehow it still flies under the radar. I install it in almost every 3D project I make. Next one is not exactly a plugin, it's more like a system that you use in your project. We're going to talk about state machines. Everything in your game will need some kind of state, including the player, NPCs, enemies, and even the battle. Everything eventually becomes a state machine machine. Personally, I just use the GD Quest state machine framework. It's in their website, not because it's the most powerful solution. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It's very simple, and sometimes that's exactly what you want. There are more advanced options out there. For example, I really like Limbo AI, and besides state machines, it also includes behavior trees for enemy AI. There is also Behave, which focuses on behavior trees as well. They're fantastic tools in some cases, but they can be overkill for your project. So depending on your needs, you just want very simple state machine. So if you're making a straightforward JRPG, chances are you don't need an entire framework just to manage your player states. GD Quest's implementation is lightweight, easy to understand, and incredibly reliable. I've been using that for many years now. So let's talk now about the game's foundation. There are three systems that I think every JRPG should have figured out as early as possible: scene management, scene loading, and saving. They're not flashy, nobody buys a game because it has a good scene transitions, but if you don't set this system up early, they will eventually become a nightmare to maintain. Scene management. One of the biggest difference between RPG Maker and Godot is that in Godot everything is a scene. Your maps, your menus, your battle, even UI elements can be scenes. That's incredibly powerful, but it also means that you need to clean a way to switch between them. Godot's built-in scene system is already really good. Personally, I don't use any plugin to manage that. I've seen a few scene management plugins floating around, but honestly, I've never felt I needed one. The official documentation does a great job explaining scene transitions, and reading the document, you can do it yourself. And once you understand how they work, moving between maps, menus, and battle becomes pretty straightforward. If you're new to Godot, I'd actually recommend learning the built-in workflow instead of reaching a plugin first. It'll help you understand how the engine is designed to work, and if you ever need a plugin for it, you have more conscience of how that works. So scene loading is a different story. As your project grows, your maps get larger, your textures or tile maps will get bigger eventually, and your resources will become more expensive to load. At some point, instantly switching scenes just isn't going to cut it anymore, so that's why asynchronous loading becomes very important. Instead of freezing the game while everything loads, you can display a loading screen, maybe a progress bar, some artwork, everything you want. Anything that tells the player that the game is actually doing something. I actually made an entire video explaining how to implement asynchronous scene loading in Godot, so if that's something you're interested in, I'll leave you the link in the description. It's one of those systems you don't think about until the project suddenly starts taking like 5 seconds to load the map. Future you will be very thankful if you implemented that very early. And finally, saving the game. Every RPG needs it. Fortunately, it's very easy to do this with Godot. The official documentation already explains several different approaches, and they're all perfectly valid depending on the kind of game you're making. My current save system is very simple. I'm just saving a dictionary with everything I need inside a Godot resource. Eventually, I'll probably serialize everything to a JSON, but honestly, the current approach works perfectly, especially for prototyping and doing tests. The important thing is getting a save system working, because once your game starts growing, retrofitting one later becomes much more difficult. If you're looking for a more advanced example, there's actually a really interesting open source save system created by the developer of Endoparasitic. He shared the entire implementation on GitHub, and it's very well made. It keeps track of almost every object in the scene, restoring them exactly as they were before the game was saved. At first, I don't believe you need something so complex as that, but it's a fantastic resource you can use to learn or even to implement on your own game. So if I had to start a JRPG in Godot today, this is exactly where I'd begin. Not with combat with stats or inventories, I just start building a solid foundation. A good dialogue system, reliable camera controls, clean audio management, and simple state machines. So after that, a robust system for scenes and saves. Once you have a foundation, it becomes much easier to build a project on top of them. One of the biggest mistakes I see beginners make is trying to create every single system from scratch. Building your own tools is a great way to learn, but sometimes it's worth asking yourself a simple question: has someone already solved this problem? If the answer is yes, use their solution. Spend your time building the parts that actually make your game unique. Those are the things the player will remember. So if you're interested in following the development of this project, consider subscribing, and thank you a lot for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one.